Taehyung's stylist, Moojin, shared a series of photographs. Among them, one in particular caught everyone's attention, a picture of Taehyung placed right next to a photo of Timothée Chalamet playing Elio in Call Me By Your Name, Taehyung's favorite film. The other images Moojin posted were of our beloved Taekook, and together they seemed to tell a silent story, one that many of us already knew in our hearts. Of all the possible photos on Taehyung's profile, Moojin chose those exact 3. Yesterday, Moojin also shared Sort's photo, featuring Taehyung and captioned with the words, "To V and JK, with love." That simple, straightforward phrase became the cover of his post. And it was enough to make the hearts of Taekook's followers beat a little faster. Because we all know that Moojin knows what Taekook means, knows what they are, and even without saying it, reaffirms it with every gesture. Although deep down, we're all certain that Taekook is real, there's something indescribably tender about watching friends leave small traces that confirm it. Those subtle signs are like a secret language that only the attentive can decipher. And this gesture from Moojin was one of those moments where everything fell into place naturally, as if the universe itself were ready to remind us that love, when it's true, doesn't need to be completely hidden. It's enough to let it shine a little. The way Taekook always cares for and protects each other remains the same through the years. Love resides in those small gestures, adjusting a coat, glancing sideways to make sure the other is comfortable, in a brief smile that says more than any words. To love is to pay attention, to notice the tiny details that others would miss. And that's precisely what we've been seeing. Taekook communicated with his eyes, with his body, with that energy that only they share. Over the years, we've witnessed that unfailing connection, that way they continue to find each other even when the world seems to be moving too fast. Theirs is a love communicated silently, not through words, but through glances and gestures. And as time passes, they remain there, looking at each other in that way that only those who know each other deeply can. They don't need to explain, they don't need to hide. Because when two souls recognize each other, no distance or rumor can break that invisible bond. Taekook is proof that true love isn't shouted, it's lived. It's demonstrated in every gesture, in every glance that lingers a second longer, in every photo that, without saying it, says it all. From the moment the so-called Taehyung and JENNIE photos first surfaced, it was clear to many that they were fake. They were debunked thousands of times, by fans who analyzed every detail, and by close sources who repeatedly denied their authenticity. However, some people continue to fall into this trap, continuing to believe this garbage that only seeks to generate doubt, hatred, and confusion. The most painful thing is that although the truth was always out in the open, the damage had already been done. Over the years, these manipulated photos spread unchecked, these forced coincidences that existed only to feed the morbid curiosity of some and the interests of others. But the most outrageous thing is that now, suddenly, the person who started this whole filthy rumor appears with a supposed excuse, trying to clear his guilt and justify himself to Taehyung. He does so with a confession that only confirms what many of us already knew from the beginning: the photos were taken for commercial, not personal, purposes. What this person now admits, even if they try to soften it, is that JENNIE's agency was also involved. They acknowledge that it was all a calculated move, a premeditated agreement, involving images and planned sessions with JENNIE's management team and staff before she left YG Entertainment as a solo artist. It was all about professional work, a project with a specific purpose, and yet, some unscrupulous companies and individuals turned that material into a scandal. They transformed it into rumors, sensational headlines, fuel for hate, using the names and images of two artists solely for their own benefit. But that wasn't all. Behind every post, behind every malicious tweet, there was a darker purpose: to manipulate Taehyung's image, sow distrust, and distract the public with a false story. And now, when everything is coming to light, when what has been known for years is confirmed, this person has the nerve to say she did it for money, justifying her dirty work with the excuse of her mother's health. It's an empty justification, a clumsy way of trying to erase the consequences of her actions. And the most ironic thing is that she now complains about what's happening, as if she wasn't the one who caused it all. It's too late to repent. Apologies, no matter how public, don't erase the damage, the cruel words that were hurled, or the doubts that were sown in millions of people. Taehyung's name was dragged into lies, used as a tool for cheap publicity, as if his image and his efforts were simply a commercial resource. And the worst came later. Despite all the evidence, all the clarifications, the echo of the rumor lived on. Some people preferred to cling to the falsehood rather than accept the truth. That's how the power of manipulation works. A well-planted lie spreads faster than any explanation. But behind that lie was a real human being, an artist who always appeared professional, respectful, and dedicated to his work. Taehyung didn't deserve to be the victim of that invasion, that defamation, or the cruelty of those who played with his reputation. Not only Taehyung, but also all of us who loved him, who followed and defended him all this time. They robbed us of our peace of mind, filled us with indignation, and forced us to fight against a lie that had no end. The saddest thing is that his name continues to be used, even today, as a tool for promotion and controversy, as if his image were a trophy of scandal. Behind all this, there is a lesson many should learn: the truth always comes to light, but by the time it arrives, it's sometimes too late to repair what the lie destroyed. Taehyung deserved respect, he deserved justice, and above all, he deserved for the world to believe in his truth from the beginning. Because while some used his name to gain attention, he continued to demonstrate with his talent and integrity who he really is. And that is the truth that no rumor can ever erase. In the many videos of Taehyung and Jungkook, there's a repeating pattern that's impossible not to notice, an invisible thread that seems to connect them beyond all logic. It's as if their bodies and gazes have a language of their own, a silent dance that doesn't need music, but resonates with an intensity only they can feel. It doesn't matter if there are many people around or if cameras are recording every moment, they act as if the entire world has disappeared, leaving only a shared space where their gestures are effortlessly understood. When one reaches out, the other responds almost without thinking, as if they know the exact trajectory of each movement before it happens. When one moves forward, the other follows without hesitation, with the synchronicity of those who have been anticipating each other for years, without needing words, without needing explanations. Every glance, every touch, every pause carries a weight that goes beyond simple interaction, turning even the smallest gestures into profound manifestations of connection. And that's precisely what we've been observing, a communication that happens with the eyes, with the body, with that intangible energy that only they share and that seems to withstand the passage of time. Over the years, we've witnessed a connection that never fades, subtle and constant encounters, a way of finding each other even when the world is moving too fast around them. Theirs is a silent love, one that doesn't depend on words but on gestures and glances, on tiny details that speak louder than any speech. One of the most impressive things about the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook is precisely this ability to communicate without needing to speak, to understand each other from a distance and from close quarters, to feel each other's presence as if it were a reflection of themselves. There are people who believe that everything that happens between them is part of fan service or the spectacle they put on in front of the cameras, but there is a profound difference between a staged act and what happens when they are together, the naturalness, that authenticity that cannot be simulated. Every gesture between them, every glance, every touch happens as if the world faded away and no one else existed, as if time slowed down to allow only they to share that moment. Even amid the bustle and noise of a stage, their connection remains intact, like a thread that resists any external pressure. Watching them is to realize that each interaction has a meaning that transcends the obvious, that each movement reflects trust, care, and a complicity that only they know. It's fascinating how something so subtle can be so powerful, how a simple exchange of glances can convey emotions that millions of words would fail to express. And yet there they are, acting with the naturalness that only arises from a genuine bond, reminding us that sometimes true communication doesn't need sound or explanation, only presence, attention, and a deep understanding of the other. Every moment together is a silent testament to their connection, a reminder that some relationships transcend words. They live in the language of gestures, in the invisible dance that only they know, inviting us to look closely to discover the secrets of a bond that, though silent, speaks with a power impossible to ignore.